Thank you. What happened a couple of Januaries ago? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Can you remind me? Hey everybody, thank you for having me. My name is Brandon Straka. I'm the founder of the #WalkAway campaign, movement of people walking away from the Democratic Party, former liberals, leftists walking away. And also, I am a January 6th political prisoner of our U.S. government, all of which I'll get into tonight. Make some noise if you love guns. I kind of figured. I've never actually spoken for a group quite like this before. I'm actually not allowed by the government to have a gun because I stood outside of the Capitol on January 6th. So I think I'm violating my probation just by being in this room with you tonight. So thank you. And I don't care. So I'll start off by kind of telling you a little bit about my background, why I decided to walk away from the left, and how I ended up in this room tonight here in front of you. So my whole life I was a liberal, a Democrat Party devotee. I grew up in a very conservative household. My parents are conservatives, but I sort of always rebelled against those values growing up in a small Catholic town in rural Nebraska. And the messages that I always got from, the entertainment industry, Hollywood, the music industry, were that liberals and Democrats were the people who cared about marginalized, minority communities, things like that, and that Republicans are the party of greedy, self-interested, straight white people, all of which I bought into hook, line, and sinker. And so to me, being a person who was, very compassionate and very open-minded and open-hearted, I felt that the Democrat Party was the right place for me. Fast forward to me moving to New York City after I graduated from high school. I wanted to pursue an artist's life. I wanted to be an actor, a singer, pursue a career in the performance art field. So I was surrounded exclusively by liberals, flash forward to the 2016 election. I was very excited to vote for Hillary Clinton and support our first woman president. Thank you. Never fails. It worked out great. Well, I'd like to say it worked out really well because it's what actually ended up opening my eyes and changing my life. But then, we'll get into the dark side of that in just a few minutes too. But election 2016, I'm sitting there in my apartment holding our, Hillary Clinton's going to win the election party with my leftist friends in New York City. And, slowly the oxygen's getting sucked out of the room as the night proceeds. And the Donald Trump is collecting more and more and more electoral votes. And somewhere around, 10 o'clock p.m., everybody left my party in tears. They hadn't called the election yet, but it wasn't looking good. And so everybody left. The writing was clearly on the wall. But I decided around midnight to go to bed. And they hadn't yet called the election. And I just kept, every 5 minutes, I kept rolling over and refreshing the Huffington Post. Hoping that somehow, like 80 electoral votes were going to come in out of nowhere for Hillary Clinton, which happened in 2020 for Biden. So it wasn't impossible. I was hoping somewhere around 3 in the morning, there would just be one of those spikes. But then around 2:15 in the morning, I rolled over, I hit refresh, and it happened. The headline changed. Suddenly there was a picture there of Donald Trump with a large red headline that read, "Nightmare, President Trump." And it said, "Millions to lose their health insurance, civil rights to be rolled back, ... and other possible headlines from a Trump presidency. So they wasted no time at all doing what they do best, which was fear-mongering and scaring the hell out of us and making us believe that the sky was falling because Donald Trump had just been elected president. And it worked beautifully, actually. The next day I had to call. I was working as a hairstylist in New York City. I canceled all of my appointments and took a personal wellness day. And I stayed at home, and I got on Facebook Live, and I started crying and talking about how terrified I was that, middle American monsters had elected Donald Trump, and trying to understand and make peace with why and how this had happened, because the media that I trusted had said that he had like a 3% chance of winning and that Hillary Clinton was going to win this in a landslide. And then the truly pivotal moment for me happened in around January of 2017, right around the time he was about to take office. I got on Facebook and I put a post out saying that I would never be able to understand how anybody could vote for a man who was capable of mocking a reporter's disability. And that was when a woman named Diane, who was my babysitter when I was a baby, reached out to me privately, staunch Christian conservative. She and I had had many battles over the years about different political and social issues. And she reached out to me privately on Facebook. And she said, look, I'm not trying to start a fight with you. I'm just asking, have you seen this? And she sent me a link to an article, or a link to a video entitled "Debunking that Trump Mocked the Disabled Reporter." Now, I saw the title of this video and I became instantly enraged. I was just sort of like, oh my God, more Fox News brainwashing, more right-wing propaganda. And then I got kind of excited to watch it because I was like, ooh, I can't wait to watch this and tell her how stupid she is for falling for this. You're so stupid, Diane. And so I watched the video, and what it was a compilation of footage showing Donald Trump numerous times throughout the years doing that same voice and that same gesture as he did that day when this microphone is really weird. One second. I'm just going to free flow. All right, so yeah, look out. Was that going to screw you up? Okay, then I'll stay here. I'll stay over here. No problem, sorry about that. So, what this video showed very conclusively and compellingly was it was a compilation of footage showing Donald Trump doing that same voice and that same gesture as he did that day when he was accused of mocking that reporter's disability. But in every instance of this, the commonality was that he was imitating somebody who was flailing because they were caught in a lie, because they were doing something shady or dishonest and they had been caught. And so it turned a light on in my brain because for the first time ever, I'm looking at this going, wow, number one, I don't think Donald Trump actually mocked a reporter's disability. But number two, why would the media that I trusted tell me that he did? Because clearly they intentionally took this moment and spun it out of context to create a narrative that wasn't true. And as stupid as it might sound to all of you who probably have been watching this happen for decades, I didn't know that that happened. Like, I didn't know that that was a thing. I thought we could trust the media. I thought the media told the truth. And so it really kind of turned my world upside down. And I started sending that video to other liberal friends and colleagues and coworkers and just asking them, hey, have you seen this? And what do you make of it? And I was instantly met with a wall of hostility and contempt. People were angry at me just for asking this question, have you seen this and what do you make of it? And I started getting all these replies from people being like, what are you doing? What are you turning to the dark side? What are you doing? Why are you supporting Donald Trump? I said, I'm not supporting Donald Trump. I hate Donald Trump. He's awful. But I'm just trying to understand this because it seems like the media lied to us about this. So two things were happening at the same time. I'm starting to have this revelation that things may not be exactly what they seem, but I'm also realizing that it's not safe to ask questions. And so being the type of person who's not really satisfied being able to just bury my head in the sand and move forward, I started living this kind of double life where I would go to work during the day, live my life, do my thing, but I would come home at night and I would get into bed and I would just obsessively watch videos and do research and read stories. And I kind of went back to the beginning of Trump's campaign and revisited all of those key moments. Did he really call all Mexicans rapists? Did he really advocate for a Muslim ban? Is the border wall racist? Is all of these different things? And what I found time and time and time again was that it was never what the media portrayed. That they were not only putting their own spin on it, but oftentimes presenting the opposite of what had actually happened. And I came out the other side of this about 2 months after I started this journey. It was in March of 2017, about 2 months after this all began, that I came out of this and I realized Donald Trump is not my enemy. The media that I've been trusting my entire life is my enemy. These are the ones, every negative feeling I've ever had about Trump is actually true about them. They're the liars. They're the deceivers. They're the ones who wanted to divide and destroy and tear us all apart. And I still wasn't ready at that point to accept Trump or accept Republicanism, but I knew that I could no longer be a liberal, and I knew I could no longer support the liberal media and the Democratic Party, because I've said before, and I'll say again, once you see it, you can't ever unsee it. And I started to see it everywhere. It was just everywhere, and it was, the left-wing media would lie about something, and then Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the Democrats, all the people I used to think were great, would pick up on that lie and run with it and convince us even more that this is why we have to support these policies and this legislation. It was all just a circle of lies, repeating over and over and over again. So I knew I had to walk away from all of it. I couldn't be a part of any of it. Are you guys getting bad feedback from this? Or is it okay? It's okay? Okay, because I can, okay. I was going to say I can just shout. My voice is loud. So I walked away from the Democratic Party, and then around the end of 2017 is when I started to understand that a lot of the things I'd been learning and researching and the awakening and the epiphanies that I were having, Donald Trump was actually talking about all of those things. And he was talking about, global entities that want to destroy the sovereignty of America, and the importance of building an America First economy and America First policies and truthfulness, my God, truthfulness in media. And when he was calling them fake news, I mean, I was when I was a liberal, I remember when he said fake news, and I was like, that is the most anti-American thing I've ever heard. CNN is not fake news. And now all of a sudden I'm like wanting to burn CNN to the ground myself. So I started to see what the appeal was of Donald Trump. And then by the end of 2017, I ended up becoming a registered Republican and becoming a Trump supporter. And in 2018, I made the decision to be very outspoken about this experience that I had had throughout 2017. So I created a 6-minute video detailing all the reasons why I was had walked away from liberalism and the Democratic Party. And I thought to myself, there surely must be other people who are feeling the same way I'm feeling. Because I know when I had this experience, it turned my life upside down. I couldn't find many other people who had shared a similar experience. The ones that I had found were already, media figures basically in their own right, because they had kind of shared their experience, and then it became, something that kind of boosted them up in the public presence. And so I didn't really feel like there were people accessible to me that I could reach out to and be like, this is really weird. Who else does almost a complete 180 about everything they've ever believed? And so I thought, isn't it a shame that there's not a community and a network of support for people when they have their lives turned upside down by the realization that we've been lied to and manipulated and exploited and used. And so I thought, well, what if I just tried to create it myself? So I sat down, shot this video, put it out, and I created a Facebook group called the #Walkaway Campaign. And what the purpose of this was for people, anybody who'd had an experience like I had had, could join our group, share their story, and I encourage people, make a testimonial, written, video, whatever, share your story, use your voice, speak out, because as we all start sharing our stories with one another, this will grow and spread, and more people will find out about what we're doing. And number one, people who are going through this will have a place to go, so they don't have to walk away alone. But number two, perhaps we can encourage more people to turn on the light, have an awakening like we've had, see that we're being lied to and used by the media and by the Democrats, and walk away together. So I created the Walkaway Campaign, put the video out. The video went extremely viral. And over the course of the next 2.5 years, our group grew to over 511,000 people. And we attained tens of thousands of videos and written testimonials of people sharing their stories about walking away from the Democratic Party. Back up a couple more years, in 2019, shortly after, about 6 months after I'd started the movement, and we'd already had explosive growth, I realized that there was something much bigger here than just a social media movement. We really had to have boots on the ground and do something different, I think, than anyone else is doing. Through the Walkaway Foundation, which is the organization that I created, I wanted to really do what I could to fill in what I call the holes in the Republican Party, which I don't want to shock you, but there are many. I wanted to do what I felt, I wanted to step in where I felt like the Republican Party was failing. One of those areas, reaching out to Gen Z, young people, reaching out to minority communities, doing outreach to let people who are voting Democrat in large voting blocks know you do actually have another alternative. You don't have to be a Democrat. You don't have to be a liberal just because you have black skin or brown skin, or because you're a member of the LGBT community, or because you're Jewish, or whatever, or you're a straight white man, whatever you are. You know, there are alternatives. You don't have to make this choice. You can think for yourself. You can break free from identity politics, tribal mentality, hive-mindedness, what have you, and walk away. So with my organization, we began traveling the country, doing college campus tours, minority-focused town halls, creating, I think, really unique and outstanding video content to try to reach people and turn that light on to create an awakening or grow an awakening that was already happening. And that was a huge part of what led to the growth of the walkaway movement. And because of the success of the walkaway movement and what I had started, I was asked to be, throughout those couple of years, I've had a very large presence on Fox News, Newsmax, the conservative media in general, and myself became a personality in the conservative movement and was then asked to be a speaker on January 6th, which I was happy to do. I'm not really, I don't consider myself a conservative public figure in the sense that I, sit around doing a podcast or do media interviews and that's who I am and what I do. To me, the most important work that I do is on the ground. I love being in front of people. I love reaching people one-on-one. I love being in front of young people and minorities and doing marches and rallies and activism work. And I take this work very, very seriously. So when I was asked to lend my voice to a cause called Stop the Steal, I was more than happy to do it. Because like a lot of people, in November of 2020, I woke up on whatever day it was, 4th, 5th, now I can't remember, feeling like something was terribly wrong with what was happening in the 2020 election. And so I went to Michigan and Georgia and Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania and a number of swing states where the 2020 election was being contested, and I held rallies to encourage people to keep their spirits up and put pressure on their state legislators to hold a forensic audit to be sure that whatever the outcome of the 2020 election was going to be, that we were all on the same page, that we all felt like it was conducted properly, that we felt right about it, that we felt good about it. I don't think that I ever said that Donald Trump absolutely won and that we have to reinstall him. I just wanted to know the truth. What is the truth? What actually happened in the 2020 election? It seemed like anytime any of us were asked questions, we were told to shut up, go away, shut up. You're not allowed to ask these questions. If you ask these questions, you're a traitor. And that to me creates more suspicion, not less suspicion. And so because I had lent my voice and my name to this cause, I was asked to be a speaker at a permitted event on Capitol grounds on January 6th. And I was more than happy to do it. So I went to Washington, D.C. I sat there and watched President Trump speak at the Ellipse. I was actually sitting right there in the front row, heard him with my own ears as he said that we were going to walk to the Capitol to peacefully and patriotically make our voices heard. And nothing he said sounded unusual to me because the event was called the March to Save America. And there were signs all over the stage around him saying, Save America March. You can't have a march without a march. Because now in retrospect, they try to say, oh, he told everyone to go to the Capitol. Well, yeah, that was the plan. The plan was always to listen to the president speak at the Ellipse. We were going to march to the Capitol. And then there was a second permitted event on a stage at Capitol grounds. So I started walking to the Capitol, as was always the plan, to my scheduled speaking engagement. And as I was arriving on Capitol grounds, near Capitol grounds, I started getting text messages from friends, family, people who were at home watching on television around the country saying, we're hearing on the news that something's happening at the Capitol and that people are going inside the building. And I thought, well, that sounds unusual. I wonder what that means. And so I was approaching the Capitol from the east side, and this is relevant because for most people who have the images of January 6th emblazoned into their brain and their memories, the images that most of you are used to seeing, people climbing scaffolding, breaking windows, scuffling with police officers, and struggling outside of the Capitol happened on the west side of the building. I was on the other side of the building, on the east side, approaching from the east side grounds, and I started shooting a video because my first instinct was, as it always is whatever's happening, capture it, capture the footage. I very much have a kind of man on the street mentality about everything. I usually can intuitively sense that something is about to happen, and my philosophy, I guess, is it's probably better that I capture it myself than rely on CNN or MSNBC to tell us what happened. And I thought, well, whatever people are hearing, I want to know what the truth is, and I want to make sure I capture it myself. So I started shooting a video, and I walked up the east side sidewalk toward the Capitol. In my video, which is about 10 minutes long, there's several things that are very important to take notice of. Number one, everybody in my video, of the thousands of people strewn about the east side Capitol lawn, everybody's very calm, very calm. There's groups of people, 10, 12, 4, 5, standing around having conversations, smoking cigarettes, talking with each other. As I continue to walk up the sidewalk, you see images of people riding bicycles, a woman pushing her baby in a baby stroller, people very calmly walking back and forth. As I got closer to one more thing. As I get toward the end of the sidewalk, the next thing that is important to take note of is that what apparently was once a barricade was now fully open. And I don't mean it was pushed over or shoved aside or whatever. I mean that the sidewalk was fully open, and off to the side of the sidewalk was bike rack. Off to this side of the sidewalk was bike rack, but the sidewalk itself was completely and fully open, and there were thousands and thousands of people standing on the other side of what was apparently once barricades. So I walked into a crowd of thousands of people, and according to the government, that was the moment when I committed my first felony, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So I walk into the crowd of people, and I walk toward the stairs, and the stairs are completely full. And the next thing that is important to take note of is that there's not a single square inch of the Capitol steps that are empty. There are people standing on every step, all the way from left to right. But none of them are facing toward the Capitol. All of the people in my video are facing away from the Capitol, holding signs, singing songs. One woman has a karaoke machine. She's singing into her microphone. But there's a man standing at the top of the steps in my video, cupping his hands around his mouth like this and shouting down to the people below, "They've opened the doors. They're letting us in. We're going inside. We're going inside." So I walked up to the top of the stairs, and when I got there, sure enough, both doors on the east side of the Capitol were wide open. These are the Columbus doors, the 20,000-pound magnetically locked doors that can only be opened by somebody who knows how to deactivate the magnetic locks by activating a code. Somebody made the decision to unlock the doors and open them, and they were opened. And there was a crowd of several hundred people at the top of the stairs. Some of them were trying to push their way inside. Most of them, like me, stood outside shooting a video. And I stood outside of the Capitol for 8 minutes shooting a video, and then a man came outside of the building, got on a bullhorn, and shouted through the bullhorn, "They've cleared Congress, everyone's left the building, move out, move out." And at that moment, I immediately turned around, walked down the stairs, and actually even told the people behind me, they're saying to move out, go this way, go this way. And I left and I walked down the stairs. So to be clear, I never entered the Capitol on January 6th. I didn't come within 35 feet of the open doors of the Capitol on January 6th. I didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction, nor did I witness any. And so I took the video that I had just shot and I uploaded it to Twitter. And I said, this is what I witnessed today at the Capitol. This is what I saw. You know, because I knew at this point that various media outlets were going to be reporting some sort of disturbance from Trump supporters at the Capitol. Never in a million years did it dawn on me that anything that I did or was involved in could be construed as criminal. I'm not a stupid person. I'm not somebody who would film myself committing a crime and then upload it to my 700,000 followers on Twitter. So in my mind, I was guilty of nothing more than simply being somewhere and documenting an event that was pretty unexciting, really, and sharing it with my audience. But the FBI and the Department of Justice saw it differently. 2.5 weeks later, on the morning of Monday, January 25th, I awoke at dawn to an a team of FBI agents in tactical gear storming my apartment, getting me out of bed, putting me in handcuffs, and taking me to jail. The agents, there were about 8 or 9 of them, came into my apartment. About 7 of the 8 or 9 began stripping my apartment of my computers, my phones, my iPads, my hard drives, my thumb drives, my camera equipment, my clothing, taking my things, putting them in bags and sealing them and labeling them, while 2 other agents marched me through my apartment building with my hands behind my back and took me to jail. The experience in jail was extremely harrowing. That in itself I could talk about for an hour, but suffice it to say it was horrible. And I was in there for about 2.5 days, told that I was going to be in 23-hour lockdown, which I was. Oh, actually, I never did see that hour a day outside of my cell, so that I was actually in 24-hour lockdown. But in an 8x8 concrete cell with a metal door. And finally, on the second day, somebody came and opened the door and told me I had an attorney phone call. My team from Walkaway had found me an attorney while I was in jail. And I got to get on the phone with this person, and he said to me, I got you a virtual hearing with a judge today. He said it's going to happen probably in 4 or 5 hours. And he said, we fully expect the judge to order your release because the government is not going to fight to have you detained. Thank God. So they took me out of my cell, took me in another cell, put me in front of a computer screen that turned on, and when the computer screen turned on, I found myself in virtual court with a judge. I stood there in an orange jumpsuit, dirty hair, hadn't showered in days, and I stood there as a federal judge came on the screen and said, this is the case of the United States of America versus Brandon Straka. And that was the first time in 2 days since even the FBI came, raided me, took me to jail, that I actually started to cry. Tears were streaming down my cheeks when I heard those words, because I couldn't believe how disturbing it felt to hear that, knowing that I was the person who spent 2.5 years, raising money and traveling around the country to try to talk to Black and Hispanic people and college kids and anyone in between, to tell them, like, look, our country is in grave peril, and we don't actually have to be so divided and destroyed. They're intentionally pitting us against each other, and there is a movement that we can join to unify and come together and try to save this country. That's who I am. But now I find myself in front of a federal judge telling me that the United States of America is versus me. And so the federal prosecutor spoke up and said, Your Honor, we know that Mr. Straka didn't engage in any violence, vandalism, theft, or destruction, and we know that Mr. Straka didn't enter the Capitol on January 6th, so the government is not seeking detention of Mr. Straka pending trial. And I thought to myself, okay, if you know this, why did an FBI SWAT just almost break my door down and put me through this entire situation over what you're almost treating like is nothing? And I think in those early days, and I've talked to a number of other J6ers, I knew no other January 6th people, defendants at this time. In fact, it was almost an entire year later before I met any other people who had gone through this. And it's interesting because we all share the same experience now that some of these people have become my friends and people in my life that we share our stories and experiences with. We all sort of have this shared experience where in those early days we thought, well, this is just a misunderstanding. When I have an opportunity to explain, we're going to clear this up. This is all going to be something that, not necessarily we're going to laugh about, but, it's just a big mistake. What I didn't realize is that the government doesn't want to clear it up. The government wants it to be as bad as they can possibly make it. They want to take a molehill and make it into a mountain. They want to take nothing and make it into something. They're actively, intentionally trying to destroy people's lives in any way that they possibly can. And I'm Brandon Straka, the founder of the Walk Away from the Democratic Party movement. I'm one of their favorite targets in this entire situation. So after I was released from jail, I finally had an opportunity the next morning to meet with my attorney. And that's when I began to understand what I was being charged with and what the situation was. He told me, for right now, you're facing 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. He said, the government has charged you with a felony of knowingly occupying restricted grounds. So essentially a trespassing on the lawn felony. Felony number 2, impeding law enforcement. We'll get back to that in just a second. Charge number 3 was a misdemeanor, disorderly conduct with an intent to disrupt a hearing before Congress. And I said, my head is spinning trying to understand what I'm being told. But I said, what is this impeding law enforcement thing? I said, I don't understand. I said, there were literally no police officers on the east side of the building. None, not one. And he said to me, well, in your video, which, by the way, I should have told you, I'm standing about 35 feet away from the Capitol doors, and there's hundreds of people between me and the doors. So I took my camera like this. I pointed it down, and I filmed like this so that my camera could capture what my eyes could not see. So he says to me, in your video, there's this one moment where one officer is walking, he comes out of the Capitol, and he's walking through the crowd with his plastic shield over his head, carrying it kind of like a surfboard. And he said a couple of people in the crowd grab it out of his hands, and they pass it around for about 30 seconds, and then they give it back to him. And he said, but while that's happening, a couple of people you hear a couple of voices in the crowd. Some of them are shouting, take it, take the shield, take the shield. Well, the government, the FBI is saying that's you, that you were the one shouting, take the shield, and encouraging the crowd to take the shield from an officer, and they're charging you with a felony for impeding law enforcement for allegedly saying those words. And I said to him, but I didn't say those words. that didn't happen. And he said, okay, well, I've already talked with the prosecutor, but he said, I'll talk to the prosecutor again now that we've talked, and we'll see what happens. So he had a conversation with the prosecutor, and he called me days later, and he said, okay, I heard back from them. The prosecutor told me that at the time you were charged, they hadn't watched your video. Only the FBI agent had watched the video, and he was the one who came up with these charges. And he said, the prosecutor said that she has now watched the video, and she agrees that maybe you didn't say take the shield, but she feels like she can hear you saying take it, take it. And I'm going, I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand what you're telling me. My attorney says to me, they're willing to drop the felony charges and offer you a misdemeanor plea deal, but you're going to have to give them something in return. He said they're not going to admit that they made a mistake. And he said, and they're not willing to drop this. So he said, this is your deal. You stood outside the Capitol and you said, take it, take it. And they also said that I was in the crowd saying, go, go, to encourage the crowd to go inside the building, which is also something that I signed in my plea deal. So I accepted the misdemeanor plea deal. I signed the government's statement of offense, which is essentially a confession that the government writes on your behalf, and you sign it in order to get the plea deal. And in my case, my statement of offense said that I went to DC on January 6th to contest the election results, that I went to the Capitol with the intention of obstructing Congress and obstructing the official vote count, that I witnessed, my plea deal says, that I witnessed police officers doing their best to restrain the crowd, and that I ignored the police officers, that I witnessed an officer having a shield taken, I shouted, take it, take it, and that I shouted, go, go, to encourage people to go inside the building. So the media then began running international headlines comparing me to Ray Epps, saying that I had gone to DC on January 6th to encourage people to storm the building. I encouraged people to attack police officers, that I was basically an unhinged, violent lunatic who went there to try to encourage an insurrection at the Capitol. And because this story took flight, scratch that part, because this has actually happened to every J6er, no matter what they did. Whether you were accused of trespassing on the lawn or whether you were accused of going inside the building and doing something much more nefarious, I was placed, along with every other J6er, on a terrorism watch list and given a designation of what's called Quad S, which means that every time you go to the airport, you're put on a list, and you can't get on an airplane without going through hours of security screening. They literally shut down an entire security lane and bring a team of about 9 agents over to They give you full body pat downs. They take every item out of your bag and swab it for explosive materials. You have to go through the body scanner. You have to go through the metal detector. And then they have a team of agents follow you around the airport everywhere you go until you get to the gate, and they station themselves around you all over at the gate. And sometimes they even bring dogs. And then before as you're about to board the plane, they bring a special piece of equipment to swab for explosive materials, and they do it again. They take everything out of your bag again, and this time they do it in front of the passengers and give you a full body pat down in front of the passengers, so that by the time you get on the plane, the passengers are terrified to ride the aircraft with you and think that they're about to die. And my organization Walkaway, we were banned by Facebook. So the group that had grown to 511,000 people was wiped out just like that. All of the content, all the videos, all the testimonials, everything gone in an instant. We were permanently banned by PayPal, Venmo, Stripe, Patreon, Constant Contact, MailChimp, 5 different email services, every payment processor you can imagine. We were banned by our donor portals. This was a complete and total annihilation on every level of my organization and everything that I had worked to build for 2.5 years. So we lost our ability to not only process any donations, but we lost our ability to process even our monthly recurring grassroots donors donations, and we lost our ability to email them and tell them it had happened. So even people who wanted to continue to support us thought that they were supporting us and had no idea that they no longer were, and we couldn't even contact them to tell them it had happened. So my team and I had to make a decision if we were going to survive this. Could we even survive this? Like where do you even, it would literally be like if somebody came and threw a grenade into your life and blew up everything that you have into a million pieces, your house, your business, everything that you have, and you're just left in this pile of rubble and going, I don't even know where to start. Where do you even begin to rebuild after this? Or do you just quit? Is it easier to quit? Yes, it is easier to quit. But my team and I have never been the type of people who do the easy thing or take the easy road. And so we made the decision to survive, and we made the decision to rebuild, and we made the decision that America is worth fighting for, and that we don't give up just because we're targeted. In fact, we were targeted for being really good at what we do in the first place. So maybe that's a sign that we should keep doing it. And so we began reaching out to conservative-minded vendors, businesses, organizations, individuals, and having conversations with them, email services, donor portals, payment processors, everyone, and saying, look, you know, I'm a Republican. I voted for Donald Trump, and I'm a January 6th defendant. Are any of these things a problem for you? And if the answer was no, and in fact, usually you would get a pretty emphatic, you know, definitely not a problem. Great, then you're the people we're going to do business with as we rebuild. And so that's what we did. We started rebuilding every piece of the organization from scratch, over again, working only with politically like-minded people who support our vision, support our mission, and believe in not destroying people who have a difference of opinion. And so we spent about a year doing all of that, rebuilding all of that. And then a year after January 6th, they arrested me on January 25th of 2021, almost a year to the day, January 2024. I finally got to the end of my case after the government drew it out 5 different times. The government asked for 5 different extensions of my case. Michael, how are we doing on time?
Maybe take questions about 4 minutes.
You got it. Okay. Because there's a lot more I could tell you. All right, no problem. Because there's a few important things I want you to know. I don't have to take a long time saying it, but before I was about to tell you my sentencing, but before I do that, let's back up just a little bit. In September of 2021, when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I thought, you know, I'm going through this horrible criminal case. My name and my reputation have been dragged through the mud and destroyed. If you Google my name now, you're going to find about 25 pages of stories about a MAGA insurrectionist, MAGA domestic terrorist, violent MAGA anarchists, and the government has taken every J6er and put us on a registry like sex offenders. So if you Google my name, the top search result you're going to see is a registry that the government's created. And this registry doesn't even just say what I was accused of doing, excuse me, the registry doesn't just say what I was convicted of doing. It doesn't say Brandon Straka misdemeanant, disorderly conduct misdemeanor. It says, Brandon Straka, this felony, this misdemeanor, impeding law enforcement. And it has a complete breakdown of what I was accused of doing. Accused of standing outside of the building, encouraging people to go inside, attacking police officers, obstructing Congress, etc. This is all right there. The first thing anybody will see when they Google my name, presumably for the rest of my life. I have no idea. In September of 2021, I got a knock at my door, opened the door, and a process server handed me a stack of papers about this thick, telling me that I am being sued by 8 Capitol police officers who are black and brown, suing me under the KKK Act, alleging that I am a white supremacist who went to Washington, D.C. on January 6th with the intention of intentionally harming black and brown Capitol police officers. This lawsuit was put forward by a George Soros-funded nonprofit law firm out of Washington, D.C. called Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law. And they sued me and about 2 or 3 dozen other people under this KKK Act, just as a means of inflicting even more pain and devastation into our lives. And so I found myself trying to raise money for my criminal case, raise money for my civil case, and keep my organization afloat, which has, by the way, full-time employees, and I'm responsible for people's paychecks and their ability to feed their children, and our ability to get out there and continue to do good work. That case took 2.5 years to get through, the civil case. Do I have that right? Yes, 2.5 years. My God, 2.5 years to get through. But I'm happy to report, as of last year, I won that case, and I prevailed victorious on all counts. All counts against me were dismissed. But almost a year to the day after I was arrested, we finally got to my sentencing. And when we got to my sentencing, my judge, who was a Trump-appointed judge, I thought that would be my saving grace. Think again. All of these judges in D.C., it's important for you to understand, are demented. They're unhinged. I think they literally have to fail a sanity test to be able to become a federal judge in Washington, D.C. Like, there's something seriously wrong with these people. And I think that a lot of people make the mistake of believing that Trump appointed means Trump supporting, when in fact it does not. All it means is that Donald Trump appointed this person. It doesn't mean that this person likes Donald Trump or his supporters. And in fact, if they don't overtly hate him, which I think a lot of them do, I think at the very least they feel they have something to prove to their colleagues that they're not going to let any Trump supporters skate. And so the people who are actually getting it the worst in many cases are those of us who have Trump-appointed judges. Now, don't mistake what I just said. I am not in any way, shape, or form saying that I had a worse experience than the people who've been rotting in the DC prison for over 3 years. And other people who've been driven to suicide, which is 5 now. 5 January 6 defendants have chosen to end their own lives rather than continue to face the persecution and the torment of the Department of Justice and what they're doing to people and the media and the way they're being treated by their communities. But I went before my Trump-appointed judge in January of 2022, and she screamed at me, she redressed me, she treated me as though I was a vile piece of garbage. And then she proceeded, and you should know too, leading up to this, my attorney, who by the way has 40 years of federal trial experience and has dealt with the government for 40 years, but any lawyer who's dealt with January 6th will tell you there's nothing like what's happening. None of them, no number of decades of experience could prepare them for what is happening in Washington, D.C. right now to the January 6th defendants or other political persecuted people like Donald Trump and other people. But my attorney had told me, you don't have a criminal record. This is a first offense, Class B misdemeanor. He said to me, a Class B misdemeanor, it's like akin to playing your music too loud on a Friday night. He's like, it's above a citation. It's not a big deal. And he said, you already went to jail for 2.5 days. Nobody goes to jail on a first offense misdemeanor. So he said, the judge is going to give you time served. I think you're good. You have nothing to worry about. We got in there. It was like I was wishing it was Judge Judy at this point. Like that would have been, she made Judge Judy look like a walk in the park. And so she screams at me, she goes after me, and then when she gets done, she said that I need to be taught a lesson and a deterrent because how dare I have a large following like I do, and influence over a lot of followers as I do, and behave the way that I do. And so she sentenced me to, after me spending 2.5 days in jail, she sentenced me to 3 months of house arrest with an ankle tracking monitor, 3 years of federal probation, 60 hours of community service. The government didn't even ask for a fine, but she imposed the maximum fine of $5,000. I was ordered to pay $500 restitution to the Capitol, although it was acknowledged that I didn't do any damage to the Capitol. And to add insult to injury, court-ordered mental health services. So for the next 3 months, I had to see a court-ordered therapist. I wish we had more time because I would tell you how funny that was, because my court-ordered therapist was a Democrat. She told me she was a Democrat. And she was like, this is the most ridiculous thing she's ever seen. She's like, I can't even call you a white-collar criminal because I don't think you committed a crime. She's like, I don't know why you're here. And I was like, thank you. Would you like to consider walking away? And I'm telling you, after 3 months with me, I would be very surprised if that woman is still a Democrat. Because we basically just, like, week by week, we would spend our sessions just being like, isn't Biden the worst? Isn't he? But anyway, so I spent the next 3 months with an ankle tracking monitor on my ankle, unable to leave my apartment. And as of today, I have 10 more months of federal probation. My probation ends 5 days after the inauguration next year. Can't imagine why. And so I can't leave the state that I currently reside in without permission from the court. I'm not allowed to own a firearm. They couldn't have possibly put me in a more dangerous situation. They've put my address on the internet. They've referred to me on a daily basis as a domestic terrorist and an unhinged lunatic who's out to steal everyone's votes and subvert democracy, and a lot more than that as well. The DC courts leaked all of my sealed documents. It goes on and on and on and on. So I'm kind of a sitting duck right now in my apartment in many ways, but let's end on a positive note and say that despite everything I've been through, and it's not over yet, but even up until this point, what I've been through, I still believe that America is worth fighting for. And I still believe in the mission that I started 5-6 years ago. And my team and I have rebuilt all of our systems of operation. We're out there again next week. Actually, tomorrow, I'm flying to Wisconsin, because this week we're resuming the Walkaway Thought Revolution College Tour. We have 5 of our greatest walkaway stories that are going to be on a panel together, traveling around 4 schools in 4 days in Wisconsin. We're going to be sharing our walkaway stories with Gen Z and college kids. Then we're going to be headed to Michigan, Arizona, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and I think I just said Arizona, but Arizona's in there too. And we're also going to be going, okay, look, I'm going to say one more thing. I always say Republicans never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. Never. And with everything that's happening to me, the J6ers, Donald Trump, you have the black community that's been telling us for decades and decades that they feel that the justice system is weaponized against us, that they feel targeted by our judicial system. And we actually have so many high-profile Republicans who are having their lives destroyed by a weaponized Department of Justice. And still, we are not reaching out and connecting with these people and saying, we get it. We know how you feel. Let's work together. If you're really worried about this, stop voting for Democrats, because they're the ones doing it. And these people are not your friends. We are the people who are going to go in there and clean this up. So my organization is going to be traveling into downtown Chicago, into Atlanta, into Detroit, and into Philadelphia, and doing events in these crucial swing states for the black community on this very issue, saying, look, there's maybe a lot of things we don't agree on. In fact, we might not agree on anything at all, but I can look you in the eyes and say, when you talk about feeling targeted by a weaponized justice system, I have lived it, and I really do know how you feel. And I'm here to tell you that if you really want to try to change it, we've got to vote every Democrat out of office. These people can no longer be allowed to maintain power. In the month of May, we're going to be headed to Texas, to the border, and we're going to be doing a border town hall, talking to Hispanic communities and talking to people on the border about why it's time to walk away from the Democratic Party. If you're an immigrant to this country, if you're Hispanic, and you have been lied to by the Democrats and told that that the Republican Party is a party of white people who hate you and that there is no seat at the table for anybody who has black or brown skin, well, we're going to get some of our best Hispanic walkaways and best Hispanic conservative speakers and go down there and talk to these communities. Look at what Democrat policies have done to your communities at the border. Look at what they're doing to this country. Look at what they're doing to your American dream, that you immigrated the right way legally into our country because you wanted a slice of the American dream, and that's being stolen from you by Democrat policies. So we're going to go to the border and we're going to do Hispanic town halls in the month of May. And we're just going to continue day after day after day fighting to save our country because, as I've said several times tonight, America is worth fighting for. And so I guess my closing words to all of you before we do Q&A are this. It's been a really, really, really rough 3 years, the last 3 years. And this year is going to be really rough as well. But even after everything I've been through, I'm not giving up. And I ask you to please not give up as well. We have to stay in this fight, as demoralizing as it can get, even when we feel like everything is rigged against us, even when we feel like our obstacles are too difficult to overcome. Stay in the fight. Stay in the fight, because there's a larger purpose here, and everybody's needed. Your voice is needed, your voice is needed, your voice is needed, my voice is needed. I'm not going to give up. You can't give up either. Thank you so much.
Take some questions. Anybody have any questions?
Happy to.
Oh man, great. Gary?
Brandon, how many of those people at your November 2016 Hillary victory party do you still speak to?
None.
There you go.
None. So, yeah, I mean, you got to look at it this way. Three different things to consider. One, I walked away from the Democratic Party. I'm considered a traitor, and I'm and I'm considered to be, crazy, unhinged. That I joined a cult. That all these different things. But the second thing is, I didn't just walk away from the Democratic Party. I was very loud about it, and I became very successful because of it. So imagine that. Your friends already hate you because you've ideologically changed your mind. But then you also became kind of famous and successful for doing it. And many of them, I think, are very unhappy with their lives and their own choices. So now they're mad about that. But then the final icing on the cake for a lot of these people is January 6th. They legitimately have been conditioned and trained to believe that an insurrection happened on January 6th. And the purpose of that insurrection was to try to overthrow the government and install Donald Trump by force. They believe this. So, I mean, you combine all of those things. Yeah, I don't have a lot of friends from my past calling me up and inviting me to barbecues. Yeah. Yes. You.
Mine is, I'm sorry, my question is a little kind of more detailed, and I really hope to talk to you later about this as well. I want to know the date that you said that your website was shut down, and there's a reason for this. It kind of coincides with something that happened to my son. All of these dates coincide with something that happened to him.
Wow.
But it's not January 6th, and I think it's all connected to maybe raise numbers of all of these terrorists. So the date that your website was shut down was the same date, similar time frame that my son's big website shut down, and all of his social media that was anyway connected to that one. And then also, my son was regularly going to the Capitol building in Arizona, in Phoenix, and was involved with or affiliate or like knew that people would stop steal. And it appears he was targeted by the FBI because they attacked him actually at the Capitol building in Phoenix on December 3rd-ish, something like that. But Ray Epps was actually also at the Capitol building several times, yelling crazy shit. Okay, so my son, there was the similar time, but a month before. So I think they were doing like a preemptive thing. When you also said that you were rated on, I think, January 19th?
25th.
Okay, so my son was rated January 19th. Like, he didn't do anything. He did nothing. They did these bogus charges, and they said he was selling and manufacturing guns. Who needs to do that in Arizona?
Right.
And it was just made up shit that we thought would just be ended like really quickly. Yeah. So my question, I wanted to verify those 3 time frames, and then in September, actually, they added more. And
so what's the time frame? When did all this?
Right. So our Facebook, it wasn't a website. Our Facebook group was taken down on January 8th, 2 days after January 6th. I was raided and arrested on January 25th, and I don't know what the third date was, but yeah, that.
Next question.
Did you get any of your data back that they seized?
Well, yes. So anything that they took, they did return. They returned everything in February of 2022, so it would have been about 13 months after I was raided. And it's really interesting. The guy that I called the lead agent, he was the one who did, in fact, I think he's the only one who did any talking when they came to get me. Remember, there were about 8 or 9 of them. Tall guy, lead agent, he asked me all the questions. He and another guy were the people that returned my things 13 months later. So he came into my apartment, and I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to deal with them. But remember, 1, I was on house arrest. I couldn't leave. And 2, there's a process that they have to go through. Like, they have to literally show you everything, and then you have to sign something saying you got it back, it was returned in whatever condition, and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, so we're going through this stupid process, and he's returning my things, and I'm trying to just say as little as possible because, to be honest with you, I wish I could redo it now because I'm a lot less cautious today than I was feeling at the time. At the time, I was still traumatized and pretty afraid of what might happen. But he said to me, so how are things going? And I was like, oh, great. Everything's really good. Thank you. And he's like, yeah. He's like, are you kind of rebuilding everything now? And I said, I really don't want to answer any of these questions with you, whatever. And he said, he's like, okay, I understand. And he said, well, I saw you on Mark Levin. And I said, oh, did you? And he said, yeah. He said, you told Mark Levin that an FBI SWAT came and got you in the middle of the night. And I said, no, I didn't. And he said, yeah, you did. And I said, no, I didn't. I said, you guys came and got me in the morning. I said, I've consistently maintained that you guys came in the morning. The reason I'm telling you this is because I always thought that was very weird. And I always felt like it was his way of signaling to me, like, we're watching you. We're watching your interviews. We're keeping up with what you're saying. I just thought it was a very bizarre conversation to have. But anyway, yes, 13 months later, they did return my things. Yes. Okay, great question. Thank you. So Facebook is shut down, and we will never stop trying to get our group back. I know that a lot of people have become disgusted beyond their ability to deal with it with Facebook, and I understand that, believe me. But we are very mission driven, and we have to be able to reach people wherever they are. And there are a lot of people on Facebook, and there are a lot of people on the left on Facebook. So we'll never stop fighting to get our group back. And in fact, we even have a hearing in Georgia on June 3rd with Georgia State Rep Misha Maynor, who very publicly walked away last year and has joined our movement. And that's when she reached out to me, and I told her about what happened on Facebook, and she said, well, let's hold a hearing about this and gather some information. So she's actually going to have Georgia senators there, and we're going to get to, for the first time, share our story about what happened with Facebook. But we've started a new Facebook group. We just started it very recently. At this point, I think we only have 15.6 thousand in there. I want to grow it back again as big as we can. If you are on Facebook, please join the new #WalkAway campaign group. Be in there, help support it, share it, let people know. But we also, during that year after I got arrested, as we were rebuilding, I actually I don't know how I did this, but I actually created our own social media platform. I mean, I didn't do it, but I hired developers and I raised the money, and we created our own app called Walkaway Social. And whether you're an iOS user or you're an Android user, you can go to your app store, type in hashtag Walkaway Social, and you can join our app. And it functions very similarly to Facebook. And people are joining the app, sharing their walkaway stories on there. And one more thing too, for any of you who are lifelong conservatives, Republicans, you have what we in this movement, you have a designation of what we call the walk withs, meaning you walk with the movement, you walk with people who walk away, you're there to provide support, community, and we always encourage the walk with community. Share your stories as well. I want people to use the power of social media and videos to create testimonials, reclaiming the narrative of what it really means to be a conservative, which I think has been stolen from you. I think the media's mislabeled you as racists and white supremacists and Nazis and whatever else. And I have learned over the last 4 or 5 years that none of these things are true, and that conservatives are kind and big-hearted and compassionate, and that there are compassionate reasons for believing in conservative values. And I encourage people to make videos and talk about that. So you can join our new group on Facebook. You can join Walkaway Social and share it and encourage other people to get on it and share it with liberals, you know, and make your own testimonials, please. Thank you. Yeah.
So you talked about, people that walk away from the Democratic Party for kind of broad, character, integrity, honesty, that kind of thing. But at some point, they have to talk about the specific issues. You know what I mean?
Yep.
At some point, they have to go, hey, I don't like the character, the integrity, the honesty, the lies, whatever, but I still have opinions on taxes, guns, abortion, immigration, LGBT. What happens when they get that deep into it? When they go, okay, all right, well, I'm here now. I walked away, but how do they change those specific, or what happens?
Great question. So obviously everybody's journey is a little bit different, and we have a motto with Walkaway. It's kind of like our recurring theme, our motto. We say Walkaway is a journey, not a destination. And what we mean by that is that we're not telling people where to go, what to believe. We're not saying you have to walk away and become a Republican, or you have to become a Trump supporter. You have to think. We're not encouraging people to leave groupthink and join another groupthink. What we want is for people to do their own homework, do their own research, search for the truth, and we're there to talk to each other civilly, to have debate and discourse, and to learn from one another, and to support each other on a journey that really never ends for any of us, of a pursuit of truth and growth and exploration. Now, what typically happens for most people is in that feeling of betrayal, it starts with a feeling of betrayal, usually from a realization that the media has lied to you about something, some issue. And for most people who walk away, that piques a curiosity that sends people down a rabbit hole very similar to the one I went down. You start questioning everything, and you start researching everything because you want to know, what else have I believed all my life that isn't true? And what tends to happen for most people is, if not a complete reversal on their belief about a lot of different positions, at least a new understanding of what it actually means, which usually results in some sort of directional shift one way or another. I'll give you 2 examples. One, guns. I used to be very anti-gun, and if you had told me as a liberal that we were going to strike down the Second Amendment, I doubt I would have cared. I probably would have supported it, quite honestly. I would have been like, why do we need guns? Guns are stupid. They're dangerous. Who needs it? Through going through my own walkaway experience and my own walkaway journey, I started to realize the importance, the absolute necessity and importance of our Second Amendment. I still don't know jack shit about guns, but I support, and I think it's imperative that everybody have the right to own firearms in our country. And I think that if there's any story that I think will demonstrate what can happen if our government becomes tyrannical and we, the people, are not able to defend ourselves, I've rubbed up a little too close to that reality. So I get it very, very clearly. So Second Amendment would be an example of something that I've completely reversed my position on. Then you take something like really controversial, like abortion. And The truth is, I don't know that I've changed my mind. I never had a terribly progressive view of abortion. I mean, Democrats now, they're abortion into the 9th month. In some states they're pushing for it, which is I think is grotesque. But I always believed as a liberal that there are circumstances, and that I think an absolute ban isn't realistic. But I will say, as a liberal, I believed in the left-wing talking points that the purpose of abortion was to restrict women's rights, and it was men trying to control women and these things. And now, through having my walkaway experience, I see that that's absolutely left-wing brainwashing and manipulation, and that at least even for the people on the conservative side who, for me, their view on abortion is more extreme than mine, I can at least appreciate that they feel the way that they feel because they're legitimately trying to protect life and trying to protect what they consider to be a human life that's defenseless. And I can respect that and appreciate that and see that very clearly. So although I haven't significantly changed my view on abortion, I at least have completely changed my view of why people who feel more strongly about it than I do feel the way that they feel. And I think that's growth and change there. But everybody's path is different.
One more question, and then we're gonna.
You refer to yourself as a liberal, but there's a huge difference between a liberal that supports individual freedoms and people called liberals that are authoritarians, like the progressives, the social justice folks.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that distinguishing one from the
Okay.
other?
Okay. So great question. I'll say this. When I first walked away, and I was learning. I mean, I'm still learning every day. I'm learning, but I was very much learning on it. Everything was kind of new to me back then. And a lot of people would say this to me, like, oh, you really shouldn't say liberal because there's a difference between a liberal and a leftist, or a liberal and a progressive, and I agree with that. I do agree with that because I think that a lot of people, when they talk about liberals, they're thinking back to another time, a John F. Kennedy Democrat who supported liberal principles and freedoms, but wasn't so far gone and Marxist and kind of anti-American and crazy. Here's my issue now. After January 6th and everything I've been through and what happened in the 2020 election and a number of other things, I find it very difficult to draw that line because whether you're perhaps a little bit more moderate and maybe you would fall under that definition of liberal, or you're more extreme and you fall under that category of leftist progressive, you're still supporting it and you're still enabling it. And if you're not willing to stand up and walk away and say this is no longer tolerable, this is no longer acceptable, I don't feel that I owe you the grace of saying, well, you're not really a leftist, you're a liberal, because you're supporting it and you're enabling it every day. And if you're supporting it and enabling it, you're a part of the destruction of this country and the irreconcilable damage that's been done to the lives of the J6ers and so many other people. I think we can reach those people. I don't think that anything is unsalvageable or unreachable. But I don't know, maybe I just don't have the generosity of spirit anymore to draw that line and that distinction and say, well, you're a good liberal.
I guess my problem is
no, you're not.
Calls them liberals, but they're not. They're totalitarians in heart.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to deal with changing the media's misleading.
Right. How to reach these people, you're saying, or how to have that conversation?
How to try and how to, the media seems to be intentionally misleading about what these people
100%. Yeah, 100%. But I mean, that's with walkaway. I never feel. I just got done saying I don't think anybody's beyond redemption or reaching, but they have to be in a place in their own mind, in their own lives, in their own spiritual journey, or whatever you want to call it. I kind of use this analogy that it's almost like the tide, the ocean tide. My goal is to get, the people who are closest to the tide that's being washed in. I don't think I can reach people who are still out in the middle of the ocean. They're too far gone. Maybe someday they'll get closer to the edge and we can grab them in our net and get through to them. But we don't have to get everyone. I mean, to save our country, save America, if we shifted 5%, we'd be winning every election. And that's all we got to do. I mean, we just need to reach 5% of the people. and we will. So I mean, we should try to, you know, reach everyone that we possibly can, but realistically, some people just aren't ready.
Big round of applause for bringing that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Michael. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, that was really cool. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Thank you.